Hello and welcome to World Insight with me, Tian. The program is coming to you live on CGTN. Today, in our special program, we are celebrating the excitement of sci-fi movies and the masters and the minds behind them. Let's start from the Chinese sci-fi blockbuster, The Wandering Earth. Take a look.
无论最终结果将人类历史导向何处，我们选择希望。点火。
The Wandering Earth is based on a novella of the same name by international award-winning author Liu Cixin. The science fiction story revolves around a plan to save the Earth from an aging sun which is about to turn into a red giant. The film garnered box office earnings of almost 200 million yuan in one day on its February 5 debut. Many cinemas were happy to give the film top billing.
30% of the showings on our schedule are The Wandering Earth, the #1 position.
By now, The Wandering Earth had earned 4.2 billion yuan at the box office, and market observers predict it will make a total of over 5 billion yuan. It turns out sheer curiosity is one of the main draws for audiences. Before that, it's usually the Hollywood sci-fi films that made it big at the box office.
Fun isn't something one considers when balancing the universe. But this
I think the quality of the film is quite high, even better than some Hollywood films like The Day After Tomorrow. This is not an overnight thing, but the result of a generation of hard work by Chinese filmmakers.
Film critics believe improvements in special effect technology were key to the film's success. Over 2,000 scenes in the film are CGI rendered, and 70% of those were domestically produced. The lack of technology in the past was what turned local filmmakers away from sci-fi. That was why China rarely had domestic productions, despite the success of local sci-fi novelists like Liu Cixin. He won the International Hugo Award for his novel Three-Body Problem 10 years ago. Sci-fi fans in China can only hope that the best is yet to come.
Science fiction has a unique universal appeal, quite literally and figuratively. Chinese audience did prove that when they came out in droves for The Wandering Earth. So what happens when Chinese sci-fi meets Hollywood? I asked that question to James Cameron, certainly the Oscar-winning film director and also the masterminds behind many masterpieces of blockbuster sci-fi movies over the past few decades. He was here in Beijing together with Robert Rodriguez for their new movie, Alita, Battle Angel. And I asked him, what about that? The Chinese sci-fi fever. Let's listen in.
I don't know what I am.
As you may know, there's a science fiction fever in China.
Good. Yes, there is. Good.
Have you heard about The Wandering Earth?
We just spoke with the director. Yes, we had heard about it. We heard that it was doing incredible business here.
Yeah, we just talked to Guo Fan and congratulated him on such a big success. And of course, I'm a big fan of the writer who wrote the story, Mr. Liu, with his three-body problem series of books and so on. And I read them all twice.
Really?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Very, very good. Really reminded me of when I used to read Arthur Clarke back in the 60s. And stories that just blew my mind. I told all my friends to read the books. I said, these are the books that remind me of what I felt like when I read science fiction when I was a teenager. And my brain just went on a journey.
What was it like for you to read the science fiction as a teenager?
I read one book a day. I read one book every day for my entire time. And
how long did it take you for you to read the Three-Body?
A long time, because they're big.
They are, aren't they?
Yeah, I think it was a whole week to read all 3 books.
Any thought about it might be becoming a sci-fi movie, joint production even?
Yeah, I actually did look into that. I think I think that's a tough one to adapt, especially the first book. But the second book is phenomenal. It would make a great movie. I hope that somebody does it because I want to see that film. But I'm tied up with the Avatar movie, so I can't. And hopefully, maybe an Alita sequel. Hopefully,
a novel, a wonderful science fiction into sci-fi movie. What is the secret of making it a success?
It's really tough because a novel just is so it's more like 4 or 5 movies.
Yeah.
You also need to do it as a series in order not to turn off the people who love it to begin, which is a lot more viable now. In the old days, you just had to make a movie, and everyone was always disappointed because you'd have to take out so much of what makes the novel great.
And also the logic of the story in the novel, how to translate that into just 2 hours.
2 hours is very difficult.
It's very difficult.
It is, and so often science fiction books are a lot about the ideas and less about the people. And I think it's very important that movies are about the people and about the emotion and so on. And if you do have to explain something, don't over-explain it, which is why I think science fiction has evolved over time. Now we have a shorthand. Now you can just say time travel, or you can just say a robot, or you can just say a cyborg, and people know what you mean. But you couldn't do that. You know, when I wrote The Terminator in 1983, I had to explain what a cyborg is. Now, Alita, we just say she's a cyborg, and it's a cybernetic organism. Now, we did put in a couple of lines about how she has a human brain, an organic brain. She's not a robot, and there's a difference between a robot and a cyborg. So you still have to remind the audience, but you don't have to start with a blank canvas and explain everything, because there's a culture that goes behind it.
Well, it was different already in that, you know, I grew up knowing cyborgs from Jim's movies. Cyborgs were cybernetic organisms that had human skin but artificial intelligence brains. And this is the opposite. This is a girl who's a cyborg body, but she has a human brain. So it's a real person coming out of there. So you end up falling in love with this character, even though she's made out of a computer, which is really was a big challenge, was to take on this movie, which was based on a manga originally. It had some very unique storytelling aspects to it, to try to stay true to that and create something that was very exciting and new and fresh and that people had never seen before. And again, he's broken so much ground. It wouldn't have been possible if not for Avatar and the you know, technical achievements coming out of that Weta was able to even make this character so believable.
Breaking the grounds, but also breaking the bones, as far as I know.
You never know if a movie is going to be prosperous, and it's kind of almost pointless to think that way, in a sense, because
you don't think about it.
I do, but as an artist, I have to do things that I'm interested in, that I'm excited by, you know. And all I can do is just hope that it will continue the way it's been. And the way it's been is when I get excited about something, I manage to get an audience excited about it, right? And if it's interesting to me, it's interesting to the audience. Now, that may not be true for other people with other sensibilities. It just happens to have been true for me, and so I just progress on that basis. If I like it and I think it's a cool idea, then other people are probably going to like it too. It's as simple as that. I don't analyze market trends. I don't look at other similar things and sort of look at how much money they made and all that. You can't do that. You just, you know, you don't have that much time on this planet to express yourself. You know, don't be laboring in somebody else's house.
Some say you're lucky, unfortunate in a way, because you've got the talent. You also got the talent in a way that you make films and people most of the time would accept it and they would embrace it just like that.
I hope so, you know, but I think luck is a factor.
Well, also the wild card that he has that he forgets because he's just been doing it so long is that, you know, he builds these movies that are just such huge technical achievements that require so much to bring to life that no one else could even really get there. But he knows that in order to pay for it, in order to pay for all that, you have to you know, respect the audience that they're going to want to see these characters. The story has to be even more monumental than the technology.
What do you think happened?
From Terminator to Avatar, people want to see it because of the characters. He knows that in order for this movie to be big, it's not the technology. It's the human story that people are going to relate to. And most filmmakers forget that 100% of the time. They just do.
Of course, Alita is another milestone for both Mr. Cameron and also you, Mr. Rodriguez. But when you think about it, from one stage to another, what is really driving people's interest besides the story itself? Is it about the technology? Is it geopolitics? Is it about the human issues that we have been thinking but never have an answer, and have a heated debate than ever before that's reflected in the movie. What is actually driving?
Drives attendance is a spectacle. Obviously, you want people to go because of the spectacle. And a great movie is a mix, a great balance of truth and spectacle. Right. So you go to a Jim Cameron movie for the spectacle, because you get that. But really, what you walk away, what you take home with you, is the human truth of it. You know, falling in love with the characters, falling in love with the story, and really making that your own.
How are you seeing the progress of sci-fi? What are the factors really driving it?
Well, I think that as our technique develops, we're able to bring to life worlds that weren't possible to do before. Now, that doesn't mean that a film like Alita or Avatar has to be dominated by the technology. I think the technology enables, right? So in Avatar, for example, technology was used to bring to life people that were not technological. They wore a loincloth. They lived in the jungle. The movie wasn't about technology. This film is different. This is a film about technology, done using the best technology. About technology in the sense that how do we live with technology? How does it invade our body? That's a symbol for the way in which we are merging with our technology through social media, through our devices, through the way that we communicate, and how our social affect with each other is being changed by our technology. I call it coevolution. We're co-evolving with our machines. So Alita is symbolic of that by putting it on the outside where you can see it. So she's a machine, but she's human on the inside, and we're all still human on the inside, no matter how our technology seems to change the world. And so maybe that's one of the things people are attracted to. Maybe they're just attracted to the action, to the look of the world. Maybe they're just attracted to her face and the heart and the spirit that comes through from Rosa Salazar's performance. I don't think people would go to see Alita for a geopolitical theme, for example, but it's there if you want it. You know, because I think movies have to work on lots of different levels.
It's very interesting when you said that it's going to be more about human interaction with the technologies. Yeah. Are we seeing a turning point? Because we see this debate increasingly happening in the media, whether it's about social media relations with that, or technology into our personal life, or are we going to be driven by technologies and eventually dominated by technologies eventually? It's exactly the opposite when you started the sci-fi movies. I mean, when you have to introduce to people about what's available there when it comes to science and technology, how do you see this U-turn? What does that mean for you as a director and producer when it comes to the challenges and the fun of it?
We now live in a science fiction world. We live in a world that was predicted by the science fiction of the 50s and the 60s. The idea that you could just be talking to somebody on a little video screen.
Every day.
That was science fiction, you know, and it was a big deal in Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey when he called his daughter on the video phone, you know, and he had to, well, it's just life now. So, you know, it's like asking a fish to comment about water. We just live in a technological world, and it's getting more and more difficult for us to get back to our roots as living organisms, you know, and I think we do feel like we're getting cut off from nature, let's say, which is why all of a sudden Avatar came along and people said, I want that. I want to go back to that sense of nature and belonging and a sense of being a part of something that's deep and real and timeless, you know, so for example, that's how that film works. I think Alita works in a different way. It's looking at, you know, when technology invades your body and your soul and your world, how do you stay human in the middle of that? How do you stay true to your human spirit? And that's what that film's about.
Sci-fi movies are not rare, but rather the sci-fi movies that's going to set the trend and it's going to interact with the technologies almost in the future, how the technology is going. That's amazing. That's what's really amazing about Mr. Cameron.
Yeah.
And you have to also play with your tricks. I mean, you have to learn these technologies very well so that you know their potential.
Yeah.
And then you implement their potential. So how does that work?
Well, I've always loved visual effects.
I know that.
And I've always loved storytelling, and this is just putting it together, and every film puts it together in a different way. We were both inspired by the artist who did the books, the manga, Yukito Kishiro, and he started the Alita series, I think 25 years ago or longer. So he was actually very forward-thinking, A lot of science fiction writers and authors and you know, manga writers and artists are thinking way in the future, you know. And so you've got to find that moment when what they're saying applies to us now in a way that we can take in, you know.
Make it relatable.
Yeah. But the actual process, I mean, for me, the process is I get some good artists around me, and I say, start painting. Just start painting. Just start showing me what you think it can look like. And then when Robert came into the project, there was already some initial art, and he said, oh, yeah, well, that's good. And then he took it, and he ran with it, and he took the design that much farther. But it's about working with good artists and seeing what this world that the story proposes, what it can look like.
But it goes beyond that. If you really want to make something that no one has seen before, it can't be, and I saw him do this on Avatar. When he was making Avatar, he didn't know what it was going to look like when it was going to be done 3 years later. He didn't know. It's a leap of faith. You have to hope that it's going to be real when you get there. So when we did Alita, we didn't know what she was going to look like until the movie was done. So you have to be able to do that leap of faith. Otherwise, you're doing something that's been done before. And it's not cutting edge. You're having to create new technology. It's kind of like having the faith to jump out of the airplane with no parachute and hope you can make one before you hit the ground. That's truly the feeling. And I saw him do that on Avatar and saw how it paid off, because I thought it was crazy when I saw him making that movie that he didn't know even what it would look like to take that big a risk. But then after I saw it come out, I go, well, that's the Jim Cameron way. You just got to jump and hope that you got the right artist and that you all can figure it out in time before it comes out to where you're stunned. Because then if you're stunned, the audience is going to be just stunned. And
he always landed safely. That's amazing.
So far.
He
keeps adding anvils to his ankles to see if he can up the challenge.
Yes, exactly.
Not one Avatar sequel. We'll do 10.
I'm looking forward to it. 4, really? Okay, therefore. Finally, before we go, final question, and briefly from you. What about that national identity? You know, sci-fi movies sometimes related to nationalism, sometimes related to, you know, geopolitics, as you say, different layers of the story. But how to make sure it is not going to be narrowed down? But rather it's a piece of work for the world. That's always important. Mr. Cameron.
Well, you know, I've loved science fiction from all sources. Stanislaw Lem, who was Polish, I think, and Pierre Boulle, who was French, Arthur Clarke, who's English, American writers like Heinlein, and so on. I mean, I grew up on books from everywhere, because to me, science fiction is about being human. And the thing that connects us all is we're all human. Now, and you start thinking about what is going to be human in the future when we go out to the stars, or when we change our society in some way due to technology and so on. I think every one of the cultures that spawns a great science fiction writer, like for example, Mr. Liu, Cixin Liu, you know, it's going to influence the specifics, but in the broad strokes, science fiction is about humans and what it is to be human, and at what point you're no longer human if you change into something else. Right? This is what science fiction struggles with, struggles to understand. So it's always about the future, and it's about the future for all of us.
It's about how to be a human also.
How to be a human, exactly.
Final words from you too?
I mean, I love this genre because it just allows you to dream again. And now I'm seeing it as if we were there, but we weren't there. We filmed maybe one part of someone on a green screen. We didn't film that. So when I see it, it's like I've jumped into the manga and it's come to life. To be able to live in the future like that. Science fiction films allow you now with this technology to, as if you were there, as if you've been in the future, and numerous futures that it will never be, which is even kind of more exciting in a way.
James Cameron and Robert Rodriguez and their understanding of the charm of sci-fi movies and science fictions.